He is often referred to as both the father of Manitoba and the father of Confederation, and is seen as the driving force in making Manitoba the 5th province in Canada. He was most recently recognized officially as the first honorary premier of Manitoba by Canada's first First Nations premier, Wab Kinew. The leader of the Métis Nation in the prairies, Louis Riel fought to preserve and protect the Métis culture and heritage in a turbulent time in Canada. Many across the country see Louis Riel as a hero, but some still see him as a traitor. Tonight we look at the impact Louis Riel had on shaping Manitoba and Canada as we know it today.
He has been one of our leaders since he was really 13 years old. He became, the first premier in his early 20s. So an incredible person. Of course, we're going to hold him up as one of our greatest leaders.
Louis Riel was born in 1844 in St. Boniface in the Red River settlement. He comes from a long line of strong Métis folk. His father, Louis Riel Sr., led an uprising after the trial of Pierre-Guillaume Sayer and 3 other Métis in the Red River colony in May of 1849. His sister was one of the first Métis members to become a Grey Nun, and his grandmother was one of the first people to come from Quebec to the Red River.
He was a long-standing, strong individual in our community, but he was also brilliant. He was chosen at a young age to continue on with his education, to go to Montreal, to learn politics, to learn about the law, to learn about the church. And when he came back here and we had surveyors coming to his cousin's land, he called his cousin and said, "Come on by, we need you to stand up for us." And so him, along with many other Métis people, came and historically stood on the chain and told them, "You will not pass." So he has been a leader since the very beginning of our nation.
In March 1869, the Hudson's Bay Company agreed to sell Rupert's Land and the Northwest Territory, now the Prairies, to the Dominion of Canada. Riel found the Red River Métis distressed by this decision, as there was a fear their lands and traditions would be stripped. Riel formed a militia, turned away surveyors, took possession of Upper Fort Garry, and began what is now known as the Red River Resistance.
We had an established place and space here in the Red River Valley. Businesses, schools, like these things existed long before the Canadians decided to come to this place. That's why it looks so agreeable to them. So history layers upon itself, and at the same time we have the United States. They're having manifest destiny. They're sweeping across the west as well. They also really like what they see up north. And although they have discussed that the 49th parallel will be the line, they're not too sure if the US will agree to that. And so they're worried if they don't get here in this place and space very soon, that their others are going to come here. And so the Canadians want to make their way over here. The issue is that people lived here. What happened was that Louis Riel was able to create the provisional government. It was made up of many individuals from all of those places. There were people who were English and Scottish and French and First Nations, and they came together to have the first democratically elected government here in the Red River without any say from the Canadian government, without consulting the Canadian government. This is why he was such a threat. He was able to create a place where we could coexist, where we could acknowledge multiple languages and multiple truths and multiple religions all in one place and space. And when they were in power in the provisional government and brought Manitoba to Confederation through the Bill of Rights, they made sure that they represented all of the people who had shared with them. When you have someone that powerful, who is that persuasive, who is that inclusive, it's very hard to dethrone them, unless you change their public image. If they had gone back to Ottawa, gone back to Canada and Ontario, and said they had this incredible, eloquent speaker who could make everyone agree in a peaceful way, to things that would benefit all, they couldn't possibly have done what they did to the Métis. Instead, they chose a man, Thomas Scott, to make a martyr of.
The Canadian government tried to disband the provisional government Riel created by bringing a small force of Canadians to Portage-la Prairie, roughly 84 kilometers west of Winnipeg. The Métis, alarmed by their gathering, rounded them up and imprisoned them at Upper Fort Garry. The Métis sentenced Thomas Scott to death by firing squad.
Thomas Scott is no one's hero. He was a violent man who was arrested. That's why he was in jail. And he actually was misbehaving and trying to escape and then was executed because of it. But those in Ontario wanted to make villains out of the Métis. They wanted people to believe that we were savages here on the prairies that didn't understand the law and would never be able to be part of the cohesive Canada they were trying to create. And so they put it in all of their newspapers, they riled everyone up, and therefore they created a place and space where they could come here and remove us from a place of power because we were in fact the villains.
In Ontario, Riel was seen as Scott's murderer, but in Quebec, he was regarded as a hero. Riel went into exile in the United States in August of 1870. In the following years, Riel was elected to the Canadian Parliament and denied his seat on 3 separate occasions. In 1884, Riel was raising a family and living in Montana. He was called upon by a Métis group in the Saskatchewan Valley to help them protect their legal rights. He returned to Canada and tried to proceed through legal means, but later established a provisional government in March of 1885. An armed uprising followed, but this was quickly crushed by the military of the Canadian government, in which Riel surrendered and was set to face trial in Regina.
So they pleaded with the judge for mercy. They also there were 2 appeals that stopped the execution of him from happening. 50,000 people in Quebec went outside in the provincial park and were crying for mercy. And there was even a medical examination in hopes that they could prove that they couldn't possibly execute him. It was inconclusive and ambiguous, and so it didn't work. So after 3 attempts to save him, he was finally executed at the behest of John A. Macdonald, because they could not have him live. He was too eloquent of a speaker. He was pervasive. He was someone that could convince everyone to rise up against this terrible thing that was happening to us. People lived here for a very long time together in relationship and were welcoming of the idea of coming into Confederation. It is only at that point that the Canadians, like in all treaties, like in all agreements, did they start to break their promises, which led to the resistance. I think that Louis Riel, so very long ago, proved to the Métis people that we have a place here in Manitoba, that we have a voice, and that we should exercise it. We should do that in a peaceful way. We should work with everyone around us, that we should be in relationship with our First Nations relatives and all those who we share the land with. And I think that our president, David Chartrand, has embodied that idea, that we are not, even on our land claim, we're not trying to claim land. We just want to claim space to be and to flourish here in the province that our leader created.
The idea is to, where am I going? Whoa!
Did us forget how to skate?
All right. Okay. I meant to do this.
When you share a hotel room with your kid, you also share a bedtime with your kid. But if you get an Airbnb, you get to pick your own bedtime.
start your day with silk? When you fill it up with goodness, blend it your way. Stir in something perfect. Or enjoy it one sip at a time. You feel plenty good.
Treat your vehicle to a full-service wash at the Chamois today. Our industry-leading ultra-soft wash washing system is gentle on your vehicle and the environment, using only earth-ready soaps and waxes. 15 minutes door-to-door is all it takes to get your vehicle looking its best. March Mania is on now at all 3 Chamois Car Wash and Detail Center locations. For the month of March, when you buy any wash, you can purchase an exterior wash certificate at 33% off. That's only $7.99.
What makes your car yours? It's the kid pleasers, late night dinners, and handy essentials for everything you care about. Intact Insurance.
Can your paper towel handle tough messes? Try Royale Tiger Towel. The strong fiber structure features 2 thick layers for great absorbency and tackles the toughest messes. For the strongest Tiger Towel ever, try Royale Tiger Towel.
Bending down to the ground to put on your shoes is kind of a pain, until now. Introducing new Skechers Slip-ins. Hands-free technology for your footwear. Just step in and off you go. Putting your shoes on has never been easier. Plus, they're even machine washable. Go hands-free with your footwear with new Skechers Slip-ins.
There are 2 kinds of people. Those who add nuggets to their Wendy's meal, and those who wish they did. Get a 6-piece of crispy 100% all-white seasoned chicken nuggets for the fresh price of $3.49. Don't miss out.
It's taken the province of Manitoba well over 150 years to officially recognize and honor Louis Riel as the honorary first premier of Manitoba. But that day came back in November, and on Louis Riel Day in February 2024, that act became legislation. In a sign of reconciliation, both the Premier of Manitoba and the President of the Manitoba Métis Federation walked down this alleyway towards the footsteps of the gravesite of Louis Riel and placed a copy of the act right here in what some are calling a full circle moment.
It fills me with a great sense of humility to be able to announce today that our government's first piece of legislation will honor Louis Riel for what he has always been, the first Premier of Manitoba.
November 23rd, 2023 was a historic day in Manitoba, as for the first time the provincial government introduced a legislation to officially recognize and honor Louis Riel as the honorary first Premier of Manitoba. Premier Wab Kinew, who is the first First Nations Premier to be elected in Canada, made this recognition of Riel one of his first campaign promises after being elected to office in October. Back in 2007, the province initiated Louis Riel Day as a stat holiday, and in 2016, Manitoba recognized Riel as the father of Confederation and the founder of the province, but did not recognize him as the first premier.
We feel a responsibility, and part of that responsibility is to honor the ancestors and the people who came here before us. And so key among those folks that we need to honor as part of our work to work for you, the people of Manitoba, is to honor Mr. Louis Riel.
Okay, on your mark, get set, history. Hey.
February 19th, 2024, Louis Riel Day in Manitoba was another milestone moment for the Métis people in Manitoba. An updated portrait of Louis Riel in the provincial legislature now recognizes the Métis leader as Manitoba's first premier. This portrait was unveiled by both Premier Kinew and Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand. A signed copy of the Louis Riel Act, which recognizes him as the first premier, was placed by both Kinew and Chartrand in front of Riel's gravesite by the St. Boniface Cathedral.
My belief has always been, you gotta believe, you gotta pray, you gotta understand that if you pray hard enough and believe hard enough and try hard enough, work hard enough, you can achieve it. I've been at this for 30 years trying to get this history corrected and this history really reflecting the true purpose and meaning of what Riel was as the first premier of this province, not getting caught up in the word president. And you look at the steps to get there. There's been many steps. It's the pain and the hardship we faced, and that embodiment of making Riel look like the enemy of the state made us the enemy of the state. And that's why you look at policies today in this country, they don't include the Métis. There's still racism, discrimination as we live and speak today. And so I gave an example the other day, this morning, First Nation Inuit Elk Branch from Canada. First Nation Inuit Elk Branch. What's missing there? Métis. So that means they don't have no health for us because we're Métis. So that whole premise of Riel being the enemy has made the Métis people the enemy of the state. So when you look at it overall, getting here in the days of reaching the reading, where it's like children walking into a candy store and we're all running to the ledge to be hearing this being read and as the first reading, and the second, of course, and then getting royal assent.
Louis Riel made significant contributions for both Manitoba and Canada, fighting to protect the lands and rights of the Red River Métis. Riel was also the leader of 2 resistance movements, and at just the age of 25, he led an uprising and formed a provisional government, presenting Canada with the Bill of Rights, known today as the Manitoba Act. However, he was tried, convicted, and hanged at the Northwest Mounted Police Barracks in Regina on November 16, 1885, for his resistance, and at the time, he was seen as a traitor. He was just 41 years old when he was killed. Chartrand says it's taken long enough to give Riel the proper title he deserves, but says Riel would have embraced this decision.
And he would have been standing there with great admiration that people have come to recognize that he worked for everyone. He tried his best to be the best he can be. So I think he would have embodied a true leader, a true statesman, but I'm sure he'd been walking around proud. And he was a proud man no matter what, but he definitely to be recognized by all citizens of the province, recognized through the premier, of course, representing all citizens. That I think would have been embodied the aspirations. He said, one day this country will recognize me for that. And they did. Finally, this day came, and it's a good day for Riel.
Chartrand says the story of Riel is, however, not over. He has been in talks with Quebec Premier François Legault about putting up a Riel statue in Montreal Park, where 50,000 people came to protest the execution of Riel in 1885. He also is working to get a statue of Riel on Parliament Hill in Ottawa.
Who's Riel to us? He's our father. He's our leader. He's our mentor. He's a man that so much believed in what we believe in today, what we claim to believe this country stands for. That was the vision he embodied. He protected the languages, the religion, the freedom. All of those were part of his persona on his position of a leader. And so it was not just he stood there and only fought for the Métis and that was his function. No, he believed he was the representative of all the people, which he had a duty to respect and protect all the people. So when you look at it from that standpoint, I think the best way, it's not who does Riel really embody and embrace for the Métis, it's who does he embody and embrace for the province, and that he is actually the true premier, first premier of our beautiful province we call Manitoba.
Are you ready? Canada's Got Talent, the $1 Million season, premieres this Tuesday, only on City TV.
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. Oh, I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it.
Winners find fabulous for less.
When you set out to remake the SUV, you go beyond all-wheel drive. You go beyond impressive towing capacity. You go big, bigger than 3 full rows of seating. When you remake the SUV, you go electric. The Kia EV9, the full-size SUV with all-electric power.
Kia, movement that inspires.
Your smile does not belong to you. It belongs to the world. It's a first impression. It's your greatest currency, and your most valuable gift. Manuka and Coster Denture Clinic. We know the importance of your smile.
Gotta love a Whopper Wednesday.
Why'd you say it like that?
Whopper Wednesday?
That's literally not how you say it.
Whopper Wednesday.
No, it's Whopper Wednesday.
Welcome to Burger King.
Whopper Wednesday every Wednesday.
Peter, over here. Peter, we have quite a few questions about retirement. Asking yourself the right questions leads to the right answers. Were you truly ready to hang it all up? Retirement's not an ending. It's an opportunity. Care to elaborate? You can find new purpose, passions, financial possibilities. It can be whatever you choose to make it. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ask yourself what the CHIP reverse mortgage can do for you.
This delectable ramen noodle recipe will put an end to your drive-through dinner rituals. Throw that powder and that tasty combo of delightful carrots and the rich touch of bok choy. Knorr Taste Combos. It's not fast food, but it's so good.
Look me in the eyes. After staring at screens, do your eyes feel dry, tired, or painful? You may have dry eyes. Sustain Complete can help.
Lipid nanodroplet technology soothes to provide instant and all-day dry eye symptom relief. Sustain Complete.
We are in one of the most historic places here in Winnipeg. This is the St. Boniface Museum. It houses some of the most accurate and original artifacts of Louis Riel. And if you look around, we are in the Louis Riel part of the museum right now. Come over here, check out something. These are the original moccasins that Louis Riel wore when he was executed in 1885. Come over this way. This is the original coffin that Louis Riel was transported in after his execution from Regina to St. Boniface. If you're like me and did not know that these artifacts were in fact original, you should come down and check for yourself.
The artifacts have been adding on to our collection over several years, probably since the very beginning until I would say approximately 10 years ago. There's always been additions that come into the collection. It wasn't necessarily gathered all at once at one time from one particular person. So there's a variety of donors in the collection for this.
Winnipeg's St. Boniface Museum houses some of Louis Riel's greatest artifacts, which depict his life. Cindy Desroches, the executive director of the museum, says the artifacts have come from many places, including the provincial archives and family of Riel.
I would say some of the major ones that we have here would be his moccasins that he was wearing when he died. The other one would be the coffin that he was transported in from Regina back to St. Boniface. So this building actually dates back to 1846, was when the construction first started. So it is the oldest building in the city of Winnipeg. We are 173 years old this year in 2024. So we've recently been talking about Winnipeg celebrating its 150th. We've been here a little bit longer than that. So this building has seen many things. So initially, its construction was for the Grey Nuns. They came here from Montreal in 1844, and what they wanted to help in the community was around education and healthcare. So this was their convent, but it was used for many other purposes within the community. Most people will recognize the St. Boniface Hospital just down the street. That actually started here in this building. We know him as a figure in our history books, right? A little bit of a legend almost, it seems like, but he was a person. He was somebody's son, he was somebody's father, he was somebody's husband, right? So all of these things put into perspective that he was a person who was living here 150 years ago, and that he was actually fighting for the rights of the people who were living here, and all of these things make it tangible and that he was a real person.
On a yearly basis, around an average of 18,000 people walk through the hallways at the museum. Therefore, Desroches says it's vitally important to properly showcase the true story of Louis Riel.
I think with the recent Louis Riel Act that was just passed, I think being able to come to the museum and visit the objects gives people the opportunity to learn more about him and to understand why there was such a push for the MMF to reconcile with the provincial government and accept Riel as the first premier of our province. The hope is that people will understand that history a little bit better, and part of the act, I think, includes education. So eventually going forward, a lot of our students within our education system should learn a lot more about Riel and understand where our province started from.